So Hari Om everyone, and welcome to the essence of Gita, the essential takeaways from the Bhagavad Gita. Most of the essence is encapsulated in chapter 2 and chapter 18, so the citations may be from these chapters, but as a whole, let's look at what makes Gita a universal text, which means that the appeal is so universal that anyone listening to it from any part of the world has a sense of disowning their small petty little loyalties to their own religion or their caste or their country or their nationality, because the Bhagavad Gita has nothing to do with a particular nationality or religion or caste or creed, or so it is actually a moksha shastra. What does that mean? It means that it is a shastra which expounds a certain philosophy, not a certain religion, mind you, and I'm making a clear distinction between the two. Religion is where you find very, very strong dictums and dogma and doctrines which are mandatory for the seekers and the followers to follow. Gita has encapsulated no such mandatory doctrines or dogma, and there are no such injunctions where Bhagavan says, Bhagavan Krishna, who is actually the speaking in Gita, there's no place where he says you have to do this. In fact, he tells Arjun in the 18th verse, at the very end of his Gyan, he says in the 63rd verse, Yadechasi tat kuru. Yad ichhasi tad kuru. You can now ponder upon all the philosophy that I have expounded and you are free. Then after pondering and contemplation, to accept or not accept it. So the very first claim that we are making is that the Bhagavad Gita is a universal text. It is not for no reason that it has been translated into over 75 languages, is still read as an active grantha after 5,000 years, and it is read across the lines of religion and nationality, because the Gita bears no loyalty to any particular religion or nationality. Having said that, let's see, what is the appeal which is universal? What do we mean when we say, oh, it is a universal text? Does it simply mean that a Russian or a Czech or a person from the or a Buddhist or a Jew, is everyone going to have an equal appeal to this? So we are saying it has nothing to do with nationality. It has something to do with the human condition. And the human condition is universal. What is that? What is it? We are all across the globe. We are all a sum total of all our experiences, our relationships, our achievements and emotions, and all our reactions. To what? To what are we having these kind of responses? To all the vyakti, vastu, the objects and situations and people outside of us. Okay, simple. Because we have a body and a mind and an intellect, we are responding to the situations and objects and people outside in a certain way. But what is it that we are bringing into our mental life from the outside, vyakti, vastu, paristhiti? Into our own lives, we are bringing in from the world only two things, either sukha or dukha. Is there any other? Okay, so only sukha or dukha, which means that our entire life somehow seems to revolve around sukha prapti and dukha nivritti. Dukha nivritti means to avoid, to be completely averse to anything which is unconducive, uncomfortable, disliked by me, dvesha, and whatever I am attracted to, whatever I like, whatever I feel attached to, oh, that gives me a lot of happiness, so I am chasing it. Is that all life is all about? Sukha prapti, dukha nivritti? Yes, it appears to be so. Why? Because we are operating from the body, the mind and the intellect level only. The body says these are the things which give me sukh and comfort and luxuries and I want it. The mind says I want this kind of security and affection and acceptance. We look for a lot of acceptance on the social media now, and the kind of affection and love that we are seeking. It's the mind that is seeking it, and that gives us happiness. And the intellect at some point begins to analyze and says, I really want to know the truth about life. What is the purpose of life? Am I here just to eat, sleep, have families and grow old and die? What is the whole purpose of this life? And the intellect also begins to become unhappy with if there are no right answers, or if there are no ready answers. So the body, the mind and the intellect, all interacting with the outside world of philosophy or objects or people or situations, are experiencing sukha and dukkha. Now, Bhagavan says, first of all, he says that there is a major flaw in the way we are leading our lives. Oh, is that so? We have been brought up to believe that all that we have to do is get the best education, the best degrees. Why? Not for the sake of higher learning or for the sake of refining our minds, but because that degree is going to give us better jobs. And we don't want better jobs for the sake of itself. The better job means better money. But the money in the bank means nothing. The money has to translate into objects and experiences of luxury. And then we say, oh, now I am happy. So this whole mill that we go through, Bhagwan in 2nd chapter, in the 14th verse says very clearly, he says, look, I'm going to tell you one little truth which will free you from this mad race. And that is, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama apayano nityaha tam stitikshasva bharata. Matra sparshastu kaunteya. It is your contact of your senses. Your senses meaning the sense of sight and sound and touch and smell. It is that all these senses are going out into the world, interacting with the world, with their particular objects, the sense objects, and they are bringing in only two things, happiness or unhappiness. But, he says, but remember only one thing, and this is my favorite line, Agama payano anityaha tam stitikshasva bharata. Agama payano, these are things which come and go like the seasons of winter and summer. So, all the objects of the world themselves are temporary. Is there any situation, any experience, any great foreign holiday or party or wedding experience or the best possible dress that we wore or the best possible restaurant and food that we had or the best possible relationship that we had or the best news that we got about a great job or the wealth that we collected? Tell me one thing, has any of that remained with us? Even if those objects have remained, of course the situations have passed on. People, even if they have remained, and objects, if they have remained, they do not give us the same kind of kick or intensity of happiness and joy that they did at the first instance. So, either the objects, people and situations are passing on, they are all temporary, agama pa, they are coming and going like seasons. Or the joy that we get from them, even if they are around, is coming and going. So, it is all temporary. This too shall pass. If we remember this in every situation of Shitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha, Shita and Ushna of course stands for heat and cold, which is for the body, and Sukha Dukkha for at the mind level. Bhagavan says, whatever it is that you are experiencing, Sukha or Dukkha, is just a passing phase. If only we remembered this, what would happen? Simple. We would become Samadukhe Sukhe. We would become Sukha Dukkhe Same. Kritva Labha Labha Jaya Jayo, which he says in the 38th verse. Jaya Jayo, victory or defeat, or Labha Labha, or in profit or loss, in Sukha Dukkhe, in happiness, or in all these situations, one thing that will happen to you is you will shed your sorrow and you will become Same. Sam means equanimous. It means you will be unmoved either way and you will become Sam. So what is this human condition which is universal and which the entire world at some point or the other turns to scriptures to look for the right answers. And that human condition is freedom from sorrow. No matter where we are, at what point in time, and no matter how much of joy that we are experiencing even right now, know the fact that that joy will pass, and once again, that passing of the joy or the failure of your relationships or the loss of wealth or even just the fading away of beautiful memories, everything that is going to bring you sorrow. Which means what? Which means that sorrow is the flip side of the Sukha coin. So if we are experiencing ecstatic joy and excitement and a sense of success in the world, know that it is the flip side of Dukkha. So it is the same coin. And in both cases, we are only inviting Dukkha at the end. So who are the people who turn to scriptures? In the 16th verse, he has said, in the 7th chapter, Arto jigyasura-tharthi jnanicha bharatarshava. Arto, the one who is afflicted and in pain and in disease because he wants relief from his bodily pain. Or the jigyasu, one who is curious about intellectual curiosity, not a lazy curiosity, but a burning desire to know what is the truth, what is sat, what is asat. What is that which is permanent and sat, and what is it that is asat in the world? And Artharthi, the third kind of seeker, is the one who turns to God in order to enhance his material prosperity, thinking that, oh, I want God's grace so that I have more wealth and more prosperity and more security in terms of finances. Okay, so Bhagavan is very clear that yes, the Artharthi also turns to me, the Arto, the one who is in pain and affliction, turns to me, the Jigyasu who wants to know the truth turns to me, and even the Jnani. There are four kinds of people. Even the Jnani, the one who has realized the truth, even he turns back to me just to revel in that truth, to revel in me, to revel in that highest absolute knowledge. So four kinds of people will always seek me out: Arto, Artharthi, Jigyasu and Jnani. Okay, now except the Jnani, all are seeking a way out of their sorrow, some kind of sorrow. Everyone is going through it and we are looking for a way out. But Bhagavan has said anything that is coming and going, agamapa, it is anitya, anityaha. That means everything that is passing in any case is anitya. So anything that is anitya or impermanent or passing or ephemeral, how can you call it real? How can you call it sat? There is no definition in any scripture which says that anything which is temporary can be called sat or truth or absolute or eternal. Nothing. So then we know that we are experiencing a world where everything is changing, the vastu and the vyakti and the paristhiti and situations and relationships. And if they are impermanent, how can my sukha and dukkha which I am gaining out of those things, how can that be permanent? So seeking a permanent happiness from an impermanent world is the only piece of foolishness, mudhaha, that we are practicing in this world. And because of this foolishness, we are wallowing now and then with spurts of happiness, with a few spurts and bubbles of happiness here and there, experiencing a loss of meaning in life. That is also sorrow, feeling a sense of meaninglessness. अरे हमारे पास प्रॉपर्टी हो गई, सब लोग सेटल हो गए, सब कुछ हो गया, पहले उसका दुख था कि नहीं है, अब वो भी हो गया, तो अब मीनिंगलेस आ गई लाइफ में कि अब क्या करें. And now we are faced with the third kind of, after even experiencing the vacuum of meaninglessness, there is a fourth kind of sorrow which everyone again universally experiences, and that is death, the fear of death. Any fear is sorrow, and we fear death. So for this, Bhagavan says, oh, how foolish can you be? Even for that, to get you out of that sorrow, I have an answer. And so in the second chapter, in the 13th verse, Bhagavan says, Dehi nosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara. The soul has just borrowed your body. It has just borrowed your body and the soul is just passing through all your changing situations of childhood and youth and old age. But that Atma, that consciousness is unchanged, immutable, eternal, and it continues. And you know that because no matter what happens to the body, we always say, I still am. And we consider ourselves just the way we are. And then somebody looks at us after 20-30 years and says, अरे हाँ, आप में तो बहुत चेंज आ गया है, लेकिन मुझे तो नहीं पता लगा because my soul actually is unchanging and we don't experience it. अगर आईने नहीं होते दुनिया में तो हम कैसे बोलते कि हम चेंज हो रहे हैं? एक्चुअली हम चेंज नहीं हो रहे हैं एट द आत्मा लेवल. तो भगवान कहते हैं एक्चुअली यू आर द रियल यू, ऑफ कोर्स not the temporary body, the temporary mind and temporary intellect plus ego, aham. देह, मन, बुद्धि और अहंकार, ये चारों चीजें आप एक बंडल बना लिया है कि ये तो मैं हूं और ये सब टेम्पररी हैं. तो क्या आप अपने टेम्पररी मुखौटे को आप अपने आप को मैं या स्वयं या अपना स्वभाव समझ के बैठे हैं? This is a persona, this is your personality. And in Greek theater, persona actually meant mask. They used to wear a mask to don the characters of the devil or the hero or the heroine that they were playing, different characters. And so when they use those masks, they call those masks persona. And now that word personality comes from that. So our personality of all that we have achieved and all that we have all the skills that we have, the intellect that we feel very proud of, and the roop and the rang and the swabhav and the sajavat and the dikhavat and the sundarta and the priya, the mod, the pramod and manoranjan. We say, oh, we entertain ourselves in different ways. All our manoranjan, our aham, even our alasya and our mahatva and our shan and shohrat. This is our personality. अरे लेकिन ये बॉडी गिरने के बाद तो ये नहीं रहेगा. So then what? So if you attach yourself to all these, then we are setting ourselves up for sorrow. It's like signing up for a course. एक course announced किया गया, how to bring more sorrow into your life, and we all signed up for it, saying कि अरे वाह, ये तो बहुत बढ़िया course है, and we signed up for it. So भगवान कह रहे हैं, how foolish can you get? Because this Atma that you are truly, which is indestructible, which is eternal, which goes through your childhood and which sees all the changes of your childhood and youth and old age. It itself does not go through old age and youth and childhood. It does not see any change in itself. Okay, but what about after death? So in the same verse, Bhagavan says, Tatha dehantara praptihi dhirastatra na mohyati. Tatha देहांतर प्राप्ति ही, आपके देहांत के बाद भी इट विल कंटिन्यू. तो हम जो कहते हैं ना, हमारा डेट ऑफ बर्थ और डेट ऑफ डेथ, ये डेट ऑफ बर्थ के पहले भी था. ये मतलब मैं एज एन आत्मा, वी वर देयर, वी एग्जिस्टेड, बिलीव कृष्णा, वी एग्जिस्टेड बिफोर आवर सो कॉल्ड डेट ऑफ बर्थ एंड वी विल एग्जिस्ट after the so-called date of death. So what do you fear now? How can you fear the world which is temporary? How can you fear the discomfort and sorrow and loss that you experience from that temporary world? Because the sense of sorrow and loss is also temporary. Agamapa, How can you fear and feel sorrow at the mention of death? Because that is also temporary. It is just the Atma passing through, just borrowing the body for a little while. So that unchanging I, which is the real, so अपना स्वयं, who is the real me, स्वयं को समझना, यही मोक्ष है. Moksha in the sense, of course, moksha has a little more complicated the process behind it, which also means to be free of all your past karmic cycle and to be free of all the pap and punya, and when you have shed all the karma through gathering no more new karma, pap or punya, only then moksha comes. Okay, so I'm not going into moksha, but remember only one thing, because this is an overview. We must remember that the Bhagavad Gita is not a dharma shastra. Bhagavad Gita is not a dharma shastra in the sense of aapko ye karna hai, this is an injunction, this is a doctrine and a dogma and a dictum by Bhagwan or by Ved Vyas or whoever is laying claim to the scriptures, and otherwise you will burn in hell. There is no such thing. This is philosophy. We have to understand what is the nature of the self, the temporary self, body, mind, intellect, and the permanent self, that is the Atma. What is the nature of this? And the Paramatma, that universal Atma. If you understand these three, the philosophy of the scriptures or Vedanta is complete. So that eternal is me. That is the whole purpose, and therefore it is called the Moksha Shastra, not a Dharma Shastra. Mistakenly, maybe some people mistakenly use it as a Dharma Shastra and wield it as for their political or whatever philosophical, for their political power, but it is a Moksha Shastra. So when I have given up, suppose, detached myself from this temporary me, मुझ में जो भी हो रहा है, changes हो रहे हैं, वो सब तो स्वाभाविक है, natural है, it's part of Prakriti, and whatever is happening in the world, that is also Prakriti. The moment I detach my mind from it, that detachment itself brings me freedom from sorrow. So there is freedom from sorrow. So tell me, who in this world would not want freedom from sorrow? Everyone. And therefore, this philosophy cuts across the lines of religion and polity and nationality and ideology. Nothing of that. It just cuts right across to the human, basic human need for knowing the self, knowing the truth, Sat, and for freedom from sorrow. That is, in the Sansari sense, we want freedom from sorrow. And therefore Bhagavan says in the 11th verse of 2nd chapter that look, if you have this Gyan, that what is eternal and permanent is the only Sat in the world. Sat can be defined only if it is permanent, eternal, immutable, unchanging, unmodifying, indestructible, anitya, and ananta. Then there is only one. How can there be two? And that Sat, that consciousness that we are, that is powering us, if you know it, then you are a Pandit. And there is no Pandit in this world. Pandit meaning the one who knows the truth, Panda. Gatasuna gatasumscha nanushocanti panditaha nanushocanti. He cannot experience sorrow. The one who knows the truth about the transitory nature of this world, and what is transitory is Maya. So the word Maya has been used in Vedanta. It means unreal. And the wise one can never know sorrow. Okay, Gatasuna Gatasumsha, जो जा रहे हैं, हे अर्जुन, जो जा रहे हैं, यानी कि जो अपना देह छोड़ने वाले हैं, because in the battle Arjun did not want to slay his cousins and his gurus and his beloved family members. So Bhagavan says, how silly. जो जा रहे हैं उनके लिए आपको क्यों grief, और जो जाने वाले हैं उनके लिए भी आपको क्यों sorrow, because you have to be like the wise. You say you are a wise person, Arjun, and still you sorrow for these people. Gatasuna gatasumscha nanushocanti panditaha. That is very strange. Then Krishna goes on to say, what are the methods by which I can actually then start practicing freedom from sorrow? Okay, so I know the philosophy and I know the truth that Bhagavan has expounded. That the world is Maya, everything is anitya, but it still doesn't, the sorrow of loss, of pain, of disasters, of natural disasters, and of loss of money, or of having some kind of a great ambition and not being able to achieve that ambition. I know the pain of it, I still know the sorrow of it. So Bhagavan has, in Bhagavad Gita, has expounded yet another principle, let's call it, and that principle is Karma Yoga. How to lead your life such that you may be very active in the world and yet not be touched by sorrow. Oh, simple. Karma Yoga is what? Karma Yoga is doing the opposite of what we are doing. What are we doing? We are doing every kind of karma in this world for our bhog. Bhog meaning enjoyment, or for our benefit, or for our so that we have some kind of gain from it. So our gain and benefit and bhog. Bhog is a strong word. Actually, English becomes too weak and watery compared to some of the words. So कर्म भोग जो हम करते हैं ना, उसको ड्रॉप करना है. कैसे? By doing karma yoga. Now, what does karma yoga mean? As defined in the Gita, karma yoga simply means that, and I'm going to quote the verse first because it is a very famous and very oft quoted verse and almost universally used, and that is the 47th verse of the 2nd chapter. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भूः मा ते संगोस्त्व कर्मणि. Let's take it part by part. Karmanyevadikaraste, you have adhikar over all your actions. In fact, you have control, full control over the skill, the expertise, the dakshata as they call it, and the buddhi with which you do your work. And that's why you're called an expert in your particular field, because you bring a certain kind of skill and expertise and buddhi and deeper knowledge in it. That is in your control. How deep you want to go and become a perfect professional. That's up to you. Okay. What else is in my control when I'm working? Oh, so it is in your control to keep a certain kind of bhava when you're working. The bhava means whether you want to be you want to do sakam karma, that is for selfish needs, or you want to do the work anyway selflessly because it has been enjoined upon you, because it is your kartavya and you're going to do it perfectly anyway. Are you going to do it with seva bhav or with a bhav of bhog, only bhog? That bhava which we keep, selfishness or selflessness, is in our control. Okay, because he's saying karmanye va adhikaraste, that adhikar you have. Bhagavan is giving us full control. Then why do we feel sorry? Okay, so the third thing that we have control over while we are working, no matter which way the work turns, no matter what phal it brings, I have or should have control over the raga or the dvesha, the anger or the disappointment, or the elation or the excitement that I feel, which means मैं समता, जो हमारे में समता है, equanimity, उस पर हमारा अधिकार control है. When I'm working, I have control over my samata of my mind, the bhav I keep of selfishness or selflessness, and also the expertise, the buddhi or the dakshata I bring. Okay, so no problem. Then why does karma bring sorrow? Because the second segment says, Ma phaleshu kadachana. But what about the phal, the result, the reward, the outcome of everything that I do? How will that turn out to be? Okay, so Bhagavan says, aha, that is where lies आपकी दुखती रग है ना, that vein which is really hurting, that is the one where you feel मुझे insistence है कि मुझे यही फल चाहिए, इतनी मात्रा में चाहिए और यही चाहिए और अभी चाहिए. क्यों? मैंने इतनी मेहनत की है भाई, मैंने इतना स्किल, अपनी बुद्धि, दक्षता, and I have put my 100% in it. Yeah, okay, Bhagavan says, hang on, I know you've put everything, but all your sorrow is arriving because of your insistence. आप ये फल के ऊपर insistence जो रखते हैं ना, sorry, that is my domain, that is my business. My business means, Krishna means the principle of karma. आपने thousands of lives में जितने भी कर्म किए हैं, जितने भी भाव रखे हैं मन में, पाप के, पुण्य के, हेट्रेड के, अफेक्शन के, सर्विस के, डिसर्विस के, सेल्फिशनेस के, सेल्फलेसनेस के, वो सब एक्चुअली इंटरट्वाइन हो गए हैं इस फल में जो अभी आपको मिल रहा है। अरे ये कैसे हुआ? वेल, दैट इज द प्रिंसिपल ऑफ कर्मा। थाउजेंड्स ऑफ लाइफ्स के हमारे कर्म इंटरट्वाइन, मतलब मिक्सअप हो गए हैं उस फल में जो हमको अभी मिल रहा है। अच्छा, इसलिए आप इंसिस्ट ना करें कि मुझे यही मिलना है, अभी मिलना है, इतनी मात्रा में मिलना है। आपका इंसिस्टेंस आपको दुखी करेगा, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट इन योर कंट्रोल। एंड देयरफॉर वी मस्ट ऑल्सो रिमेंबर, लॉजिकली अगर सोचा जाए तो हमने कॉन्शियस चॉइस कितनी की है? अपने फैमिली के बारे में कॉन्शियस चॉइस की है? जी नहीं। हमको अपने कर्म के हिसाब से जहां पैदा होना था, जिस परिवार में होना था, वहीं पैदा हुए। वी डिड नॉट मेक अ चॉइस विथ रिगार्ड टू आवर फैमिली, आवर बर्थ, आवर अपीयरेंस, हमारा रंग रूप हमने चूज किया है? जी नहीं। हमारा हेल्थ, हमारे गुरु, हमारे किस स्क्रिप्चर को पढ़ने को मिलेगा, कब पढ़ने को मिलेगा, हम सोचते हैं अरे ये चॉइस तो हमने की है। जी नहीं, ये सब किसी न किसी के जरिए, कोई ना कोई एक जरिया बन गया है, एक निमित्त बन गया है, और हमारे लाइफ में गुरु या शास्त्र या पढ़ाई या वेल्थ या प्रॉस्पेरिटी या अच्छे रिलेशनशिप्स या बुरे रिलेशनशिप्स, ये सब बिना चॉइस के आ गए हैं। तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि हमारे डायरेक्ट एफर्ट से हमको ये सब तो नहीं मिला है। ये सब भी हमको हमारे पूर्व जन्म के बहुत सारे कर्मों की वजह से मिला हुआ है। डायरेक्ट एफर्ट से हमको नहीं मिला है, क्योंकि हमने डायरेक्ट क्या एफर्ट किया है भाई कि हमें ये रंग, ये रूप, ये प्रॉस्पेरिटी, ये वेल्थ, ये फैमिली, ये अफेक्शन, ये रिलेशनशिप, ये शास्त्र हमको मिल गए। हाँ, मिल गए, दैट्स वी आर वेरी लकी, सो वी आर ग्रेटफुल फॉर इट। बट डायरेक्ट एफर्ट तो हाँ किया नहीं था, बस अपने आप होता गया। तो देयर आर नो कोइंसिडेंसेस इन लाइफ। इन कार्मिक प्रिंसिपल देयर आर नो कोइंसिडेंसेस कि अरे ये तो कोइंसिडेंस हो गया, अरे इत्तेफाक से हो गया। जी नहीं, इत्तेफाकन कुछ नहीं होता। तो हमने ये सब कुछ अर्न किया है, कमाया है पूर्व जन्म संस्कार से। ठीक है, इसी तरह जो चीज हमको नहीं मिल रही है, हमने बहुत एफर्ट किया अपने कर्म में और कर्म भूमि में, और जो हमको एफर्ट हमने सोचा था मिलना चाहिए वो नहीं मिला, उसका विपरीत हो गया। हाँ, विपरीत भी हो सकता है, कम भी मिल सकता है, ज्यादा भी मिल सकता है, नहीं भी मिल सकता और देर से भी मिल सकता है। इन 4 तरीकों से भगवान यानी कार्मिक प्रिंसिपल हमको जवाब देता है या फल देता है। तो हमको ये समझ लेना चाहिए कि या हो सकता है अभी मेरा समय नहीं आया, बाद में, या हो सकता है ये मेरे लिए सही नहीं है, भगवान ने नहीं दिया, हो सकता है मुझे इतनी मात्रा में आई डोंट डिजर्व इट, वट एवर इट इज, ओनली इन दीज 4 ways कर्म फल विल कम। सो भगवान सेज मा फलेषु कदाचन, यू हैव टू हैव forbearance and accept. The moment you accept and say, हाँ भाई ठीक है, I can see the larger picture. I don't see my just my previous work of 3 months. मैंने प्रोजेक्ट में इतनी मेहनत की थी और मेरे बॉस ने तारीफ नहीं की। अरे अगर हमको अपना कैनवस बहुत बड़ा दिखने लगा ना, थाउजेंड्स एंड मिलियंस ऑफ लाइव्स का कैनवस दिख गया, ऐसे कि अरे हजारों ऐसे बॉसेस आए होंगे, हजारों रिलेशनशिप्स, हजारों प्रोजेक्ट्स आए होंगे, कुछ काम किए, कुछ नहीं किए, कुछ फ्लॉप हुए, कुछ सक्सेस हुए, हाउ डज इट मैटर, ऑल पुट टुगेदर एक जोखा लेखा बन गया। उसके हिसाब से हमको एक अकाउंट अभी मिल रहा है। उस अकाउंट के हिसाब से द मोमेंट वी एक्सेप्ट, Dukha is dropped. Dukha from the mind is dropped. And therefore, Karma Yoga simply means to do your best and stop hankering for a specific phala. Because many people actually misinterpret this particular shloka by saying कि आप अपना कर्म करते जाइए और फल की चिंता ना करें, और या फल नहीं मिलेगा। नहीं मिलेगा ऐसा नहीं है। एवरी एक्शन हैज एन इक्वल एंड ऑपोजिट रिएक्शन। वो तो फिजिक्स में भी पढ़ा है न्यूटन की वजह से। लेकिन कैसे मिलेगा, कब मिलेगा, ये आप भगवान पर छोड़ दो। दैट इज हिज बिजनेस, इट इज नॉट योर बिजनेस। एंड जैसे ही हमको ये पता लगता है, हमको एक सेंस ऑफ डिटैचमेंट और डिस्पैशन हो जाता है, एक्सपेंसिवनेस भी हो जाती है। तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं? डिटैचमेंट, त्याग का कर्म फल का। और पहले इंस्टेंस में हमने काहे का त्याग किया था? हमने उस चीज का त्याग किया था, उस बिलीफ का, उस सिद्धांत का कि मैं ही ये एक छोटी सी लिमिटेड बॉडी हूँ और माइंड हूँ और इंटेलेक्ट हूँ, देहिनोस्मिन यथा देहे, इसका हमने त्याग कर दिया था। तो हम डिटैच होते जा रहे हैं गलत या टेम्पररी या फॉल्स चीजों से। ऐसे करते करते भगवान लीड्स अस ब्यूटिफुली टुवर्ड्स what is intellectual sorrow, the sorrow of feeling a sense of meaninglessness in life, कि अरे इस लाइफ का मतलब है क्या, हमने सब कुछ तो हासिल कर लिया और अब रह क्या गया है। and then the mind says, the questioning mind says, I want to know the ultimate truth, ultimate truth। छोटी छोटी चीज़ों की ट्रुथ तो मैंने पता कर ली कि स्टॉक मार्केट कैसे चलता है, प्रॉपर्टीज़ के रेट्स कैसे हैं हम अगर एजुकेशन में हैं तो बेस्ट मेथडोलॉजी क्या है, टेक्नोलॉजी आजकल क्या चल रही है, हर चीज़ का हमने सत्य खोज लिया। लेकिन ये सब अपरा विद्या है, जिसको कहते हैं दुनिया के बारे में है। हम अपने बारे में जानना चाहते हैं, द एब्सोल्यूट ट्रूथ एंड अबाउट परमात्मा, दैट एब्सोल्यूट ट्रूथ। सो Bhagavan says, do you know that if your mind is constantly in the world scattered, the moment you have one small ambition or a small project, लेके देखिए आप कि ये प्रोजेक्ट हमको लेना है या छोटा सा मेरा एम्बिशन है, उस एक थॉट और एम्बिशन के पीछे there will be millions of other related thoughts कि अब कैसे करना है, कब करना है, और उसमें how do I acquire this or that in order to fulfill that project, in order to attain that ambition or that। अब उसके पीछे लग गए तो उसके पीछे बहुत सारी छोटी छोटी थॉट्स उसको हासिल करने में थॉट्स बनती गई। उसी को भगवान कहते हैं, if you want the absolute truth, you need a single pointed mind, a mind which is capable of contemplation, of steadiness, of quietness, of detachment from a constantly moving and unpredictable and changing world of happiness and sorrow। आप अपने को थोड़ा सा इससे दूर रखेंगे तब आपको I can talk about the absolute truth। That's what Krishna says in the 41st verse of the 2nd chapter। He says, व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि, व्यवसायात्मिका a buddhi which is sthir, which is constant, single pointed। व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि एकेह कुरु नंदना। And if your mind is scattered, बहुशाखा, बहुशाखा ह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्, and the mind is dwelling all the time in this and that, how is it that you are asking for the absolute truth? You cannot even contemplate or achieve it। So now, first step was to detach the mind from the impermanent things, the Maya or the ephemeral or the mithya, whatever you call it, सब कुछ माया है। Detach our mind a little bit and dwell on the what is permanent। In that first step, we also saw that no matter how hard we work towards the maintenance and upkeep of this body, the maintenance and upkeep of this family, the maintenance and upkeep of my profession, my job, my business, my wealth, my property, my beauty, my youth, आप चाहे जितना उसके ऊपर एफर्ट डाल लें, वो कर्म जो एफर्ट है, कर्म, it can never bring permanent security। It can never bring complete fulfillment। इतना अगर हमने समझ लिया तो फिर हम I will drop it and look for the highest unchanging truth। For that I need a resolute mind, a resolute intellect is called vyavasayatmika buddhi। I need that, and holding that one conviction that yes, there must be one permanent thing or unmoving or nitya or ananta or eternal truth, there must be one। उस एक ट्रूथ को पकड़ के हम अगर ढूंढने निकले, then I am already internally free from the sorrow of this world। The sorrow of this world is what? all the things that we bring in through people and objects and situations and relationships. So व्यक्ति, वस्तु, परिस्थिति, सब कुछ को पीछे छोड़ते हुए then we start out on a new journey. For that you need a व्यवसायत्मिका बुद्धि, a resolute intellect, not allowing the mind to keep running into raga or dvesha. In the Bhagavad Gita, raga and dvesha have been called the two biggest enemies, the two biggest robbers, thieves of our happiness and our right to know our true nature, our right to find that ultimate truth, our right to become one with that Paramatma and to find liberation. That right is taken away only by two thieves which are sitting right here in our own home, in our own minds, and they are raga and dvesha. Raga is attraction and affection towards things I like, and dvesha, dislike and dissociation and aversion towards things which I do not like. And our whole life is spent unnecessarily, squandered, मतलब कि एकदम खर्च कर दी जाती है जिंदगी राग में या द्वेष में. हर वस्तु, व्यक्ति और परिस्थिति के पीछे एक राग है, द्वेष है, राग है, द्वेष है. भगवान says everything will go according to their own prakriti. Why are you wasting your time? And therefore the mind needs to detach itself. But how can you detach a scattered mind anyway? So we need a mind which is steady. There is this, when we talk of the essence of Bhagavad Gita, I cannot resist mentioning the great ladder of fall, which means that the mind is uplifted. Bhagwan step by step हमारे mind को lift कर रहे हैं towards the highest truth, to away from the impermanence of the false Maya, all the falsehood, and still I have the danger of slipping. एक step में slip करती हूँ और धड़ करके पूरी सीढ़ियों से नीचे हम फिर गिर जाते हैं. The mind will drop again. Why does this happen? So Bhagwan uses some great psychology and that is the ladder of fall. We call it the ladder of fall. It's mentioned in from the 62nd verse of the second chapter. It says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. How does it start? I think of some object of my desire, anything in the world, some ambition, something I want to acquire. It could be a vyakti, a relationship, a vastu, a project, some situation I want कि काश कि मैं उस क्रूज पर होता और एक बंगला में मेडिटेरेनियन में होता. उसको एक्वायर करने के बाद there's a great sense of emptiness, but we spend our life chasing it. Anyway, dhyayato vishayan pumsah, the mind works like this. Thinking of some object of our desire, it becomes attached to it. It becomes attached कि अब मुझे ये चाहिए. संगस्तेषु उपजायते, संगत मतलब अटैच होना, संग. और उसके बाद जैसे ही अटैच हुआ, it becomes like a hankering, a passion, a kind of a feverish desire कि अब मुझे acquire तो करना ही है. संगात संजायते कामः, वो काम, वो desire begins to overpower me. मतलब वो अब मुझे जकड़ लेता है. Now that desire is in control. Now I am not in control anymore. उसके बाद कामात क्रोधो भी जायते, और वो काम यानी डिजायर अगर मुझे मिल गया तो बहुत बढ़िया, तब तो हम बहुत ही लोभ में पड़ जाएंगे, या फिर मुझे और भी ग्रीड हो जाएगी, that I want more of the same, or I will become arrogant and proud. अगर नहीं मिला, कामात क्रोधो भी जायते, तब you should see my disappointment and anger and bitterness. Krodh actually includes a whole lot of these negative feelings of injustice and negativity, of feeling unfulfilled and disappointed and bitter. ये सब हमारे मन में आ जाता है. क्यों? अरे भाई वो चीज हमको चाहिए थी, लेकिन किसने कहा था कि वो आपके that you deserve it? नहीं, हमने कहा था I wanted it and I should deserve it. Arey bhai, but that is not in your hands. It is Bhagwan's business whether you will deserve it or not. Of course, you can strive for it. So, so the ladder of fall, starting from krodh, starting actually from a thought. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते. अब क्रोध से क्या होता है? तो आगे 63rd वर्स में क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः, एंगर क्लाउड्स माय जजमेंट, नाउ आई डोंट सी राइट फ्रॉम रॉन्ग. मुझे चाहिए तो बस चाहिए. ओके, माय जजमेंट इज टोटली क्लाउडेड नाउ. सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रमः, leading to a bewildered memory. Now my memory, and now what I should be doing, what is the right thing to do now, everything, all the gyan and knowledge and righteous behavior, everything is now wiped out. क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः, सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रमः. इस डिल्यूजन में पढ़ के हम क्या करते हैं? स्मृति भ्रंशात् बुद्धि नाशः. So my memory is deluded, and that memory which is deluded leads to a destruction of my buddhi. अब हम right wrong के बीच में जान ही नहीं सकते. बुद्धि is destroyed and बुद्धि नाशात् प्रणश्यति. 63rd verse. Now pranashyati is your downfall. हमारा सबका. You are ruined. प्रणश्यति. We are ruined completely. कहाँ से शुरू हुआ था? भाई एक थॉट था, लेजीली बैठे हुए थे, सोचा कि ये कर लें तो ठीक होगा, और धीरे 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 उस चीज ने मेरे लाइफ पर हावी हो गया. मेरी लाइफ पर हावी मतलब मेरे मन, बुद्धि, मेरी मेमोरी, मेरी स्मृति पर हावी हो गई वो चीज. और उसके बाद नाउ आई एम नॉट इन कंट्रोल. सो नाउ हु इज इन कंट्रोल ऑफ माई हैप्पीनेस? वो चीज मुझे मिले या न मिले, इस पर अब मेरी हैप्पीनेस डिपेंड करती है. आई एम नो मोर इन कंट्रोल ऑफ माई ओन हैप्पीनेस. दिस इज द लैडर ऑफ फॉल. ज्ञान सुन लिया, फिर वापस एक स्टेप में एक स्टेप गलत पड़ गया, ट्रिप, एंड पूरा सीढ़ी अगेन बैक टू जीरो. सो बैक ऑन द ग्राउंड. And then pranashyati, destroyed. It's a strong word. Pranashyati is a strong word. Bhagavan is saying you will be ruined. Now, you are not in control of your happiness. Then why are you weeping that Bhagavan, hey, मुझे दुखों से निवारण दे दे? अरे, who brought on this dukha? Bhagavan is saying it's your business. You have to find a way out. I can only point the way. So this is the Vedic psychology of sorrow. The Vedic psychology of sorrow has these logical steps. Western psychology has come to the same point. If we go through the psychological journals and manuals, they've come to the same point. But this was spoken 5,000 years ago. So what has Bhagavan said? That the root of sorrow is your own thought and your own desire. And if you strike at the root, you have solved the problem. So where is the big issue? All our senses are facing outward, and therefore our extrovertedness in seeking something from every sense organ from the world becomes like a natural way for us to live. Bhagavan says it may be natural to you, but it is not the way of the wise people. Even animals live like that. So detach yourself from extroverted desires. This word detach, tyag, is coming all too often. Tyag meaning detach yourself from the belief that you are just this body. Detach yourself from the belief that you are, you're going to live only in this one body, and that you are impermanent, and with your death you will die. Detach yourself from that thought. Detach yourself from desires, because they will lead you to your downfall. Now this word detach and equals to the word tyag. So Ramakrishna Paramahansa was very fond of using an analogy, and not an analogy, a kind of tongue twister, and he used to say, आप गीता 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 बहुत बार बोलिए तो देखो कैसे साउंड करता है. It sounds like तागी 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 तागी. Tagi is the opposite of, not opposite, but it's the a way of pronouncing, Bengali way of pronouncing tyagi, the detached person. So if you say in one word, suppose you are saying Gita is about what? Okay, so if somebody is in a big hurry and doesn't want to read 18 chapters, you say, okay, Gita is about tyag. It's about detachment. Can we live in a detached way? But जो सुनने वाला होता है वो सोचता है अरे इन्होंने तो कह दिया कि संन्यास ले लो, सबको छोड़ छाड़ के पहाड़ों पे चढ़ जाओ, और ये तो हम नहीं कर सकते. गीता इज नॉट फॉर मी. आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी इम्प्रैक्टिकल एंड अनएप्लीकेबल काइंड ऑफ अ स्क्रिप्चर. ये हमारे लिए नहीं है, छोड़ो. दे हैव लॉस्ट वन लाइफ बाय सेइंग छोड़ो, because they haven't gone into the depth of छोड़ो what? त्याग, I mean त्याग of what? Detachment of what? उसके गहराई में जाइए तो आप देखेंगे कि त्याग और डिटैचमेंट ऑफ एवरीथिंग विच इज फॉल्स. हर वो चीज जो फॉल्स है, जो मिथ्या है, जो माया है, जो अनित्य है, जो इम्परमानेंट है, एफिमेरल है, उसका त्याग करते जाओ मन में. मतलब जिंदगी तो जीना ही है. तब हमको समझ में आएगा अरे हाँ यही तो त्याग था. एंड द होल गीता इज टेकिंग अस अवे फ्रॉम सॉरो बाय दिस वर्ड त्याग. सो द त्याग वर्ड नॉट टू बी टेकन very lightly unless we have understood the depth of it. And in the same verse, in the 66th verse, Bhagavan has said, a mind which is scattered out in the world, how can it become ready for contemplation, for deep thought, for even meditation and contemplation about the highest truth. So he says, Nasti buddhirayuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana. ये युक्त नहीं हो सकता. युक्त यानी सिंगल पॉइंटेड नहीं हो सकता ऐसा मन जो ऑलवेज एक्सट्रोवर्टेड है. न चाभावयत शांति ही अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम. ऐसा मन जो ऑलवेज एक्सट्रोवर्टेड है ये तो अशांत रहेगा. तो अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम. आप सुख ढूंढ रहे हैं और अशांत मन लेके घूम रहे हैं. So Bhagavan says, in these contradictions, you tie yourself up, and then don't come to me and say that philosophy is contradictory. You're living in contradictions. Ashantasya kutas sukham. And the final freedom is what? The absolute final freedom is freedom from our fear of death, of course. And for that, Gita has one more phrase, one more shloka, which Gita or Ved Vyas, you can say, or Krishna, has borrowed verbatim, totally from Kathopanishad. Kathopanishad, which is a dialogue between Lord Yam of Death, the Lord of Death, and Nachiketas. This beautiful Kathopanishad is where this shloka appears, and it has been lifted fully and brought here in the 20th verse of the second chapter. A powerful verse. It says, Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. The soul is neither born nor does it die. It doesn't have a date of birth and a date of death like your body has. Date of birth so and so, birthday manaiye. No, the soul has no such thing. Ajo nitya shashvatoyam. Ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranah na hanyate hanyamane sharire. That soul is eternal. It is indestructible and it is ageless. It knows no age. So can you say that Mera soul is now 50 years or 60 years or 70 years old? Soul. How do you measure the age of the soul? No, it is ageless. It is exactly as it was before you were born, and it will be exactly as it is after our bodies drop, and it is exactly the way it is before the dawn of time, before the creation of universe. Same, exactly the same. So this book, actually the scripture, is a book of philosophy. It's not a book of religion, of any particular religion. So then why do I feel sorrow of death? Simple. अभी तो बताया था. Because we are identified with the solidity. ये body मेरा solid है. ये मन मेरा एक solid चीज है जिससे मैं लिप्त हो गया हूँ. और इसके जाने से मुझे दुख होता है और वो दुख भी equally solid लगता है. अरे नहीं, बॉडी इज चेंजिंग एवरी मोमेंट, माइंड इज चेंजिंग एवरी मोमेंट, एवरीथिंग इज इन अ स्टेट ऑफ फ्लक्स. आप किस चीज से आइडेंटिफाइड हैं? जो चीज मिनट दर मिनट चेंज हो रही है. तो फिर असल में मैं कौन हूँ? आज सुबह से लेके आज शाम तक हमारे मन में कितने ही भाव, कितने ही अनुभव आए दुनिया में, दुनिया के अनुभव और भाव, और कितने ही फीलिंग्स एंड इमोशंस इन सब में से मैं कौन हूं असल में? None of these, because these were all passing emotions. कभी anger, कभी bitterness, कभी affection, कभी एकदम sorrow, कभी compassion भी आया, और फिर bitterness, compassion सब mix करके आया, दिमाग खराब हो गया. तो लेकिन इनमें से मैं कोई भी एक चीज नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि these were all passing in a state of flux. Just as every molecule and atom in the body is in a constant state of flux even right now. Even the body which we think is solid. Now हमने इस false चीजों से अपने को identify कर लिया है, तब sorrow तो आएगा ही. So to find the eternal nature of ourselves and of the universe, that eternal truth, we have to surrender. Surrender, that is tyag. Surrender is a form of tyag. Tyag all that is false in the mind, not literally. अपने कर्तव्यों से नहीं भाग के हो सकता है. एंड देयरफॉर सम पीपल से कि हम जब इंडिफरेंस की बात करते हैं तो भाग जाने का मन करता है. नहीं नहीं नहीं, दैट इज अ काइंड ऑफ श्मशान वैराग्य. श्मशान वैराग्य मीन्स वैराग्य आया क्योंकि डिफिकल्टीज आई लाइफ में. नो, सो देयर इज, इट इज नॉट अ लेजी डिसइंटरेस्ट. दिस त्याग इज नॉट अ काइंड ऑफ लेजी इंडिफरेंस कि अच्छा छोड़ो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है. Some people have interpreted it like this, and the whole character of a society has changed, because they said, अरे भगवान ने कहा था ना, you have to be उदासीन. उदासीन का basis is उत आसीन. Seat yourself above all this falseness. नहीं, भगवान ने कहा था उदासीन रहो, डिटैच रहो, तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है, चलने दो. Who cares? चलता है, वो चलता है. Attitude is a तामसिक way of interpreting detachment or tyag. And also what about the desperate person? The desperate person says, नहीं, मुझे ये सब चीजें चाहिए ही दुनिया से. And then he gets very agitated and ambitious in order to gain it. So that is a very desperate kind of person, who is called the rajasic person. And the sattvic person says, I'm going to be detached, and I know that I have to do my kartavya. Let the phal take care of itself. It will come according to my karmic principle or karmic what I deserve. And I move on, completing my duties. I am detached from sukha, dukha. I am samatvam, sthita pragya, which means steady in my knowledge that all this is impermanent. I am sthit in that. That is a sattvic kind of a mind. So गीता तो हम सब पढ़ते हैं, लेकिन कोई एकदम तामसिक मन से पढ़ रहा है, कोई राजसिक मन से पढ़ रहा है, कोई सात्विकता उससे हासिल कर रहा है. हम सब अपने अपने हिसाब से we will grow according to where we are, doesn't matter. But sattvic mind says that to detach is to detach from the asat, all that is impermanent, and to attach to sat, which is the absolute, the immutable, the anant, and that which is indestructible, all pervasive, avyayam. That is only one consciousness. Surrender completely to that one truth, and that is called a way of escaping all the sorrows of the world. So we saw, in short, we saw basically in 3 short points the whole essence of Gita can be encapsulated. What is that? At the social level, we can just talk of tyag. Social means social mental, and that is detachment from all that is impermanent around us, and detachment from the phal of our own karma phal, and detachment from the belief that I, this body and this mind and this intellect is permanent. Detach. These are all false. Tyag is one big message. Second big message of Bhagavad Gita is contemplate. Contemplate. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi. Keep a mind which is so steady and single-pointed that is the mind of a sannyasi. Now we say, sannyas. चलो इन्होंने तो कह दिया गीता में कि आप बोरिया बिस्तर बांध के हिमालय में चढ़ जाओ, तो ये तो गीता हमारे लिए नहीं है. स्क्रिप्चर्स एंड ऑल वेरी इम्प्रैक्टिकल यार, चलो छोड़ो, लेट्स डू समथिंग एल्स. दैट इज व्हाई scripture of this depth has been neglected and lost to many generations, and therefore we have to find the gems of truth in it. so that it can transform our lives, it can bring us back to the ultimate truth, to the truth about our own self. ये तो ultimate knowledge है, because it is the knowledge of ourself. मैं कौन हूँ? All the rest of the knowledge is about the world. So sannyasa means I want a mind which can contemplate. Tyag, sannyas and surrender. Surrender means completely give yourself up to that intuitive knowledge. क्योंकि after some time logic doesn't work. You say, ये consciousness मुझे दिखता नहीं है. I can't slice it. I can't see it. I can't burn it. Yes, of course, you can't slice it and see it and burn it, because it is not a matter of your senses. And therefore, भगवान ने कहा है surrender to it, क्योंकि ये knowledge आपके logic और बुद्धि के परे है. It is a contemplative intuition. एक स्तर पर जाके आपको intuition को छोड़ देना चाहिए कि now in meditation I will contemplate. And therefore, the most beautiful, I will end with the most beautiful verse of the second chapter, which says, no, you cannot grasp this ultimate eternal truth by your bare little senses, small little limited senses. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, nainam na chainam kledayantyapah, na shoshayati marutaha. ना आप इसको काट सकते हैं, ना आप यानी शस्त्र, ना कोई शस्त्र इसको काट सकते हैं, ना आग इसको जला सकती है, न जल इसको गला सकता है, और न वायु इसको सुखा सकती है. इट इज अ मैटर ऑफ इंट्यूटिव रियलाइजेशन. इट्स नॉट समथिंग यू कैन इन अ टैंजिबल वे ग्रास्प एंड से मुझे निर्वाण मिल गया, मुझे सत्य मिल गया, ऐसे नहीं. सो इट इज बियॉन्ड 4 senses, and we are dwelling only within our not 4, 5 senses, and therefore we are dwelling in sorrow. I'm going to end here. Hari Om.